Vacations are good, but comebacks are even better, and they are meant to be colorful. Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief on Channels Television. Yes, it's good to be back. I am Bukola Koka, and of course I'm here with my younger brother and slightly older brother. Well, live for you, by the way, from here in the nation's commercial capital, Lagos, and in Abuja. Hi, Kayode.
All right, Bukola, it's good to have you back. I see you shining like the sun, quite literally. Welcome back.
Thank you.
So for those who've been asking, where's Bukola? There you go, back from vacation, looking all fresh. Well, good morning. I'm live for you in Abuja. I'm Kayode Okikelu.
Well, there's only one thing I can promise, Bukola. As an elder brother, the fact that Nigeria has
Slightly
a lot,
older brother.
Nigeria has a lot going on right now. That this freshness, give it 48 hours, just like the petrol from Dangote refinery. We're going to see how it plays out for our welcome, Bukola, and of course, welcome to the program. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga.
Okay, so I'm back from hibernation, and I'm just going to throw it to you guys. So what's been happening?
There's a lot that's been going on in our country. Sometimes you don't even know where to turn as far as the issue of, I think the biggest issue, like literally, if the masses have their way, Kayode and Bukola, is the fact that they would love the media to say nothing else, not to discuss anything else but the fuel scarcity, the fuel hike, the price hike for fuel, and all of the attendant issues around the oil and gas sector. And now begin to think again about some of the things I've heard people say, that whoever is the GCEO or whatever category of name is called, the position is referred to of the NNPCL is almost like another president of Nigeria, because we had an analyst here who said when it comes to success of any presidency in Nigeria, because we run somewhat of a money economy or we depend on oil so much, the issue of price of fuel and the availability of fuel has a lot to affect or can affect the presidency of any president per time. And we're seeing it play out right now. So if Nigerians have their way, they literally don't want the media to say anything, because if you go online, on social media, on YouTube, on radio, on your street, on television, everybody is literally livid, angry, and they just don't know what to do. And this is not good. Guys?
Well, Bukola, if you ask what did you miss, quite a lot. So let's try to, of course, bring you up to speed. The big one is the petrol price increased by 50% plus, about 57%, right? So it's closer to 1,000 than to 500 it used to be. That's on one hand. Well, Nigeria's inflation tapered down a little bit, but again, people ask, I can't feel that. There was also the GDP figures. So there was a slight increase in our GDP. Osimhen is now in Galatasaray, by the way. He's no more in Napoli, Bukola, just in case you're wondering. Our Olympics team, they didn't get any medal at the Olympics, right, while you were away. Thankfully, the Paralympians have been able to get 2, as at the last count, 1 silver, 1 bronze. Should I go on, Bukola?
Well, I'm quite familiar with a bit of that recap, but you can just summarize it. Yeah.
So basically, it's been a mixed bag of events ever since you went away, Bukola. And just as Jeffrey said, welcome back. We look forward to you giving us all of that energy, that, vigor that you've since gotten, that demure, so we can share in it.
Okay, thank you so much, Kayode, for
really
helping out. Yeah, and that dismal performance at the Olympics, despite the billions of naira invested, was quite disappointing. I wonder if you guys, came out with all of this support, wearing jerseys and all of that. If you did, that may not have been very good for your mental health, considering the outcome. But I may have missed quite a lot, but what I didn't miss is the seeming lack of accountability in the whole petrol process, because I recall that there was that lingering scarcity even at the start of my vacation, and after 1 month I have returned and nothing seems to have changed. I recall that the Corporation Limited now in the last 2 years had provided all sorts of explanation from, the inability of vessels to load, bad weather, and now we're beginning to, become acquainted with what the real issues are, in the sum of a $6 billion debt to its suppliers of petrol. So where does that leave us? We could go on and on, but we're just going to temper down on some of the issues and review them as we go along. Speaking of which, that's where we're going to start for you today on the program. And it's not just the long queues, petrol queues that are depressing, but also the reality of the late price adjustment is leaving a weight on the mind of Nigerians and a bigger hole in their pocket, which is getting leaner by the day. Perhaps the more common question now on the lips of many Nigerians is, how do we survive this Tinubu economy? Let's start by asking Nigerian businessmen today.
And now, be all there is something in the offing that has to do with, reduction and increase of taxes. On one hand, it's going to be, bringing it down to as much as zero. On the other hand, VAT will increase. We'll break it down for you. Nigerians may just have to deal with more increases if the new tax proposal by the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy is anything to go by. This includes an immediate rise or the rise in VAT from the current 7.5% to 10%. That should be from 2025, I should say. Also, American business magnate Bill Gates has pointed out that Nigeria's tax collection rates are low, posing challenges of financing critical sectors like health and education. What do these reform proposals mean for the already fragile economy? We'll get expert opinion on these matters.
And of course,
President Bola Tinubu approves that when he returns. But Bukola, I was just saying that you can join us live on the show via social media. And a question we have for you is this. Do you think the government should return subsidy, so go back, or we should keep going this path? If you have questions or if you have answers to that question, I should say hashtag CTV Morning Brief across social media, or just go over to WhatsApp right now and drop your message. If you've got videos as well about anything happening around you, I know the few queue will be like top on that list. Send them in. Let us share it with the world. We're here for you. Bukola.
And indeed, not forgetting that we'll also be bringing you something lighter, after all of the serious talk. That will be later on the show. A lot has been said about the Miss Universe Nigeria pageant following the emergence of the winner, the Nigerian national, with also some disputed South African nationality, Miss Dania. But we're seeing the pageant through the eyes of another, Miss Kwara, appreciating also what it means to be a contestant in a beauty pageant. So we'll be hosting Ms. Kwara on the show later today.
Absolutely. So, hey, at the end of the day, whatever you want to happen within the country, if you want people fired, if you want anybody gone because of the inability to manage our economy, please feel free. As Kaide said, on WhatsApp, on X and all of that. Personally, my eyes are Melekiare. We're watching. If the fuel doesn't come out of those refineries this month, well, he has all of us to contend with. That's a promise.
Somebody is angry this morning. Is there fire also spitting from Abuja, Kaide?
Well, let us hear from Nigerians. You put this government in power. Whether or not you voted for this government, at the end of the day, this government is the government in power right now over Nigeria. And so you have a voice. So let your voice be heard.
Of course, and we'll amplify it. After the break, the show will continue unfolding. Stay with us. The Morning Brief. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and we begin this morning with politics from Anambra State, to be precise, as the chairman, Board of Trustees of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA, Mr. Chekwas Okorie, is asking the National Working Committee of the party to activate its disciplinary committee to sanction Governor Chukwuma Soludo of Anambra State and others for alleged anti-party activities. The APGA Board of Trustees chairman made the call at a news conference in Abuja, describing as repeated efforts by chieftains of the party to rein in on Governor Soludo to give peace a chance in the party. Mr. Okorie warns that nobody within or outside the party would be allowed to destroy APGA.
When the Supreme Court of Nigeria delivered an unambiguous and decisive judgment on the APGA leadership dispute, which affirmed Chief Edozie Njoku as the national chairman of APGA, every reasonable Nigerian expected that the protracted leadership dispute in APGA would cease finally, following the general rule that there must be an end to litigation. In spite of all entreaties to Governor Soludo to give peace a chance, to allow APGA to live out its full potential and promise, he remained recalcitrant. It is on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, that I advise the National Working Committee of APGA to activate without delay the party's disciplinary machinery. I strongly advise that the party's disciplinary measures must include, but not limited to, Professor Chukwuma Soludo. The sanctity of the supremacy of the political party in party democracies all over the world must be sustained and maintained.
And more politics now. The Edo State governorship candidate of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Asue Ighodalo, is assuring residents of the state that he will make use of the marine economy and natural resources to improve their quality of life. The PDP candidate, who stated this during his campaign in Esako East and central local government areas of the state, says the local government have loads of potential to attract tourism. Now, the Arewa Consultative Forum is alleging that those calling for the restructuring of the country and the amendment of the constitution are plotting to harm Nigeria's northern region. Chairman of the forum's Board of Trustees, Mr. Bashir Dalhatu, stated this during a meeting of the forum in Kaduna. However, Mr. Dalhatu maintains that the northern region is not against the review of the constitution. Africa, according to President Bola Tinubu, holds vast opportunities for investment, growth, and development within its vibrant population, productive economy, and natural resources. Speaking at a bilateral meeting with the Chinese Premier Li Keqiang in Beijing, China, President Tinubu commended the role of the Forum on China-Africa cooperation in advancing partnerships between Africa and China for mutual development and prosperity.
Share a very common denominator, which is investment and development, to ensure China and African relationship is encouraged. For me, as a Nigerian, and equally as the chairman of the ECOWAS, I'm happy that the strategic partnership being promoted is acceptable to both sides. And this is the only way to go. Africa is a huge opportunity for economic development. As a great people, are willing to partner for progress and development. What is lacking will be the focus of the FOCAC and the areas that we can collaborate to make the relationship mutually beneficial to all of us.
And back home, the National Association of Nigerian Students has dissociated itself from the planned nationwide protests slated to hold on September the 15th against the latest petrol price hike. In a statement signed by the Senate President of NANS, Afiz Akintaye, the students group described the information as false and a rumor. The Senate President of NANS in the statement further describes the information as baseless that does not represent the position of NANS. He, however, calls on security agencies to launch a thorough investigation into the source of this misinformation. Now, the Trade Union Congress, TUC, has expressed shock over the latest hike in the pump price of petrol and is demanding its immediate reversal by the federal government. The TUC, in a statement by its president, Mr. Festus Osifo, contended that the sudden hike in fuel price and electricity costs will exacerbate the poverty levels and worsen the suffering and hardships of Nigerians across the country and may even trigger social unrest. The TUC is thereby urging the government to rescind recent policies that have stifled the poor and promote reforms that will strengthen the naira and alleviate the sufferings of Nigerians. And to the north now, no fewer than 7 persons have been confirmed dead and some others injured in what is seen as a resurgence of terror attacks in Bokos local government area of Plateau State. In a press statement signed by its chairman, Mr. Farmasamsum Fudang, the Bokos Cultural Development Council, BCDC Vanguard, expressed sadness over the resurgence of deadly attacks by terrorists, which targets, according to them, ethnic minorities in their local government, and despite the peace agreements brokered by the Nigerian military. According to the group, the latest attack in Darfur, which occurred on Tuesday night, was perpetrated against residents in a commercial area not far from a military base and left at least 7 people dead. The group, however, expressed its appreciation to the Special Task Force Operation Safe Haven for responding to the attack, while calling for an investigation into the role of some security personnel manning the nearby base in Darfur. An Abuja High Court has declined the request by organizers of the End Bad Governance protest to vacate an order which restricted them to the Moshood Abiola National Stadium in Abuja for the purpose of staging their protest. At the resumed proceedings, Justice Sylvanus Orji had requested explanations from counsel to the FCT Minister, George Ibrahim, on whether or not the suit still had life in view of the fact that the August the 1st to the 10th protest had come and gone. The counsel to the FCT Minister in his response informed the trial judge of a letter written to the FCT Minister by the protesters where they asserted that the protest may last longer than August the 10th. He also drew the attention of the court to fresh processes filed by Omoyele Sowore and 3 others where he alleged that they were still in the mood for another round of protests. And in business, air cargo demand has jumped by 13.6% in July compared to the same period in 2023, marking the 8th consecutive month of double-digit growth. And that's according to latest data by the International Air Transport Association, IATA. African Airlines saw a 6.2% increase in air cargo demand, the lowest among all regions and their lowest for the year 2024. Despite this, global capacity grew by 8.3%, mainly due to a 12.8% rise in international belly capacity. IATA's Director General Willie Walsh points out that air cargo is benefiting from strong global trade, booming e-commerce, and challenges in maritime shipping. He therefore expects demand to remain strong as the peak season approaches. And outside our shores, sadly, 4 people have died and 9 others are injured after a gunman opened fire at a Appalachia High School in the U.S. state of Georgia, and one person has been arrested, authorities confirm. Police say students are being reunited with their families after the evil attack. The school is located about 45 miles northeast of the state capital, Atlanta. U.S. President Joe Biden says he is mourning the deaths of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence. And in sports, Nigeria international Victor Osimhen will receive $6 million net seasonal salary at Galatasaray following his season-long loan to the Turkish Super Eagles club from Napoli. The Turkish club disclosed this on Wednesday in an official statement announcing the deal for the current reigning African Footballer of the Year. And this means that the Super Eagles of Nigeria striker will be earning around £115,000 a week after tax during his one-year stay in Turkey. And congratulations to Victor Osimhen, and of course a good reward for being African Footballer of the Year. Every time Jeffrey, I hear, the sums that they pay them when they move. I feel like I need a change of career. Jeffrey joins me, by the way, for a review
too
of
late
some
for
of
a
your.
change of career. You're here. You got to do what you
And
have
you're not
to
going to
do.
let me go, right?
You're here. Some of us wanted to be footballers, but it didn't work out. But we're glad where we are. At least we
Yeah.
have something going for us at the end of the day.
Yes, indeed.
So let's get started with the things that the people have been talking about, and it has to do with a statement credited to Bill Gates, one of the world's richest men. Of course, he's in Nigeria for the Nutri Vision. He's been advocating against hunger, especially among children and all of that. But he said for Nigeria to fulfill our potential, our tax collection is quite low. If we need to fix things like health and education, and then the tax collection is quite low. Well, Nigerians are literally, struggling
Beneath the weight of taxes, right?
The weight of taxes and multiple taxes, which is why the Fiscal Tax Reform Committee is trying to work out how all of this can be reduced to the barest minimum for everybody to appreciate what is coming in 2025. But let's hear what you're saying. Ben Samuel says, wrong. You can't tax the unemployed or those earning a minimum wage of 70,000 naira, considering the number of working Nigerians, and with electricity tariffs and fuel prices already straining citizens, it's not feasible.
Adele also says, that's Adele Lawal. He says he may be just right. Rich Nigerians are not paying enough taxes in relation to their income. The tax burden is mostly borne by the poor in Nigeria.
And that's a fact. That's what the Taiwo Yedele said. The rich don't pay as much tax as the poor, which is why they are reviewing all of this. And of course, there's a lot of leakages when it comes to taxes. He said last year, for instance, the total collection of levies and all of that across the 36 states and the FCT was about 50 billion. And then imagine all the monies you've been paying, harassed literally by these, some touts sometimes. Where does the money go to? Somebody's pocket.
But we must also remind the administration about President Tinubu's promise that they're going to tax wealth and not the poor.
Yeah.
So all of those recommendations that the tax committee made, have they been implemented in the first place to reflect the new approach to administering taxes in Nigeria?
It's on the table. It's on the table according to him, and some things will be fixed by the National Assembly. La Roca, you say absolutely true, and we'll go further to say minimum 90% of Nigeria pay less than 20% of their gross income in direct taxes.
And Bakasine says, the man doesn't understand that the problem is not about the tax collection, but the tax collectors. Do they remit the tax appropriately to the government account? Yeah,
that's a big question. Robert Andrew has this to say. May they increase time to 50%, I beg. If you earn 50K, make your take home be 25K.
I believe that's some sarcasm there. Well, this is from Ibn Sabil, who says tax collection is too low. How, Ogami? Just come and sell all of us. If they want to be sincere, only the rich should be taxed in Nigeria. The poor should actually be allowed to breathe original air and not the scam we're breathing now.
Ironically, it is the rich that is not paying as much taxes. That's the truth from the experts. Godwin Ibade says he's very right. Nigerians have become too rich and wealthier since Tinubu came to power. Increasing tax and paying back the country's a patriotic act. Please note the APC runs are tax exempt. the sarcasm is just all over.
All over,
It's
right?
all over the place. It's just all over the place.
Yeah.
Let's move on to something else, Bukola. And that has to do with still Dangote and
Bill
Bill
Gates.
Gates.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bill Gates and Dangote attending NEC meeting in Abuja, in Aso Rock, chaired by the vice president. And people are reacting. Hausa tech guys say, we hope the meeting is for the betterment of Nigeria.
Okay, that's just it. Okay, Sir K 3024 says Bill Gates attend NEC meeting to tell them that our tax is too low. Ola needs. Why is Bill Gates joining NEC meet? Okay, that's the next talking point.
Yeah, why is Bill Gates joining NEC meeting? Can Otedola Dangote then join US NEC meeting?
Well, valid questions from Nigerians there. And this one is from Obedient Man, who says, please, under which capacity is Bill Gates there? Can you try it in the US? Imagine Dangote going in there in the US NEC meeting.
I don't know, maybe you want to make a presentation.
Maybe,
We don't know.
just maybe.
All right, tricycle operators staging protests as petrol hits 1,200 naira in Kano. Boy. Bukola, you take the next one.
Yes, and this one is from Buoyant, who says, buying the fuel at that price is not even the problem. The problem is it will further inflate the already inflated food prices, then more hunger. And that's exactly the problem. The fact that the price has gone up, it will have a ricochet effect on every other commodity in the economy. That is the problem.
Bigger problem.
So if it's being sold for 1,200 naira in Kano, what about further down the north? How much are you buying petrol? Let's know.
Okay.
More of your comments.
Igigi, Destiny DSTY, you say, now we're talking, we're getting there. Abuja, Lagos will sell for 1,300, while Kano will sell for 1,500 to 1,007. Then we have arrived.
This is sad. Maker says, ordinary 1,200 naira per liter. You people are giving this government a bad name.
Sarcasm.
Sarcasm.
Okay, China has agreed to help Nigeria fight money laundering. The president is in China. He met with Xi Jinping yesterday. And there's a forum between China and Africa ahead of UNGA. So some of the outcome of that meeting with the Chinese president and leader is what we're talking about. Some understanding and signing of agreement have come on. And some people are saying that, look, instead of doing some of these things, let's housekeep first before we start attracting people. But everybody with their own kettle of fish. Idris, a no PhD, says, okay, Idris Oni said, just give us a manual of how to deal with corruption.
Well, Captain says, let's start by emulating the Chinese law on corruption. Capital punishment.
A lot of politicians actually will go down if this is happening. Okay, Professor Edwin Ijoma said Nigerians has the capability to fight money laundering and equal development partnership through import and export trade negotiations. How would Nigeria's product become more internationally competitive to enabling closing the country's widening balance of payments with China?
Valid questions there. Eze Chukwu Mich 4 says, the Nigerian banking system is substandard and lacks modernization. The federal government should take steps to control cash circulation so that transactions going through banks can be traced and monitored. If criminals know that it's difficult to access cash, they will think twice before demanding it.
So there's a lot going on your mind, and we are seeing all of it. If time permits us, we're going to take more later on the show, but those are the ones we can actually bring to the fore. We thank you as always. Please don't stop. Bring it on X, on Twitter. Okay, on X, I've said that. No longer Twitter, as well as on WhatsApp as much as possible, Bukola.
Yes, so speaking of the economy, that's where we're going to be taking off from and asking those questions that are really agitating your mind as the program continues to unfold. That will be after this.
we all can't do without petrol. When petrol sneezes, we all catch a cold. And that's a picture of what is playing out right now in Nigeria with the recent increase in the price of petrol. Everyone, I'm talking everyone, has been impacted, from individuals, families, businesses, and that list goes on and on. And just for another day, we take a look at the impact of the petrol price hike on businesses this time around, and what the options are, because now is a good time to start tinkering and thinking. We're joined on the program by a man who is in the know, particularly when it comes to businesses in Nigeria. He is the president of Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI. Mr. Gabriel Idahosa joins us virtually this morning. You're welcome to the Morning Brief, Mr. Idahosa.
Thank you. Good morning.
Now is a time, as we said yesterday, that people are increasingly opting to work from home because it's more cost effective. You don't move around too much. But let's get into the issues quickly. We know how much or the percentage increase of petrol, at least 57%, judging by what the NMPC limited outlets have put out there. So that's on the one hand. We know how much transport has increased in Abuja, 50%, in Lagos, at least 50% as well. So I'd like us to begin with numbers, particularly for businesses. So seeing the increase in the price of petrol transport, what kind of increase are you looking at for businesses? And two areas, your cost and the prices that you put out there, Mr. Idahosa.
Well, it depends on the business that you do and how much petrol directly plays in your business. If you use petrol, for example, to run your generator, then it's serious for you, because you are probably just going to have about the same percentages you have quoted in the increase in your costs. If you don't use petrol, but your staff have to move, or you have to move your goods from your factory or your warehouse to any location and use vehicles that use petrol, then your prices are also going to reflect the kind of percentages, to the extent that it is a significant part of your cost. So we are not going to say like exactly 50%, 40% increases in prices, but some increases will come. Could be anything between 10 and 20%, depending on what you do and how much petrol impacts your business. Certainly there will be increases, but it will vary significantly depending on the business. If you are in the service business, for example, and you really don't use much of petrol, then it may not directly impact your prices. So we'll see a mix of price movements, and they will aggregate to another inflation level that we could see in another month or two. Again, it depends on what happens when the petrol from Dangote and the Port Harcourt refineries come out, and if we see a moderation of these prices as a result of that. So the situation now is very fluid. We need to look at what happens in the next couple of weeks,
Right.
Especially with the promise from those refineries.
Right. So that offers a glimmer of hope. Again, there's been a lot of debate around that. But let's talk about policy now, because I know your role, your work at the LCCI is about policy advisory and business advisory as well. There are a couple of options on the table for government, because if this is increasing the price of the cost of transportation, production cost, eventual price of goods and services, one can only imagine what the coming days hold. In fact, some have begun seeing that increase already. So in terms of policy advice, you know the numbers, you know what the different economic indices say. The options on the table for the government are as follows. One, go back to paying subsidy so that at least you can ease the pressure, particularly on the vulnerable people who have to live from hand to mouth. They are generating sets, vulcanizers, grinding machines and the rest. So go back to subsidy to ease the pain for those people, or stay on this course, which means that businesses will have to rethink, retool. Some of them might have to shut down as a result of this. So in terms of policy advice, what are the options on the table for government, and which would you nudge government in the way of?
In 100% of our revenues to service our debts. So as a government, we don't have any funds to continue the subsidy. So that option is, unfortunately, reducing the subsidy simply means we need to do a lot more borrowing. And our borrowing capacity has reached a certain level, not because we don't have the assets to back the borrowing, but because we don't have the revenue to pay. We have a capacity to borrow because we have a lot of assets as a country, but our current revenues are not enough. So that option is not there. So the options that are essentially being canvassed is to provide much more social benefits. For example, there has been a talk around reducing government charges for anything. For example, school fees. We can talk now about not just loans, but actually reducing school fees very significantly, reducing all the costs that we charge in our hospitals significantly. A lot of those things to reduce the actual burden that Nigerians carry. Because with the removal of subsidy, definitely government now gets significantly more revenue. That revenue is being used to pay debts, but that revenue can also be used to cushion some of the major pain points of Nigerians. We are in school season, most parents are trying to find money, pay school fees, battling with all the other things that have been mentioned. So the real option is to look at a lot of reliefs. The word palliatives has been bandaged too much around that it distracts attention from the real issues. What government can do now is to look at the specific pain points of Nigerians and say, what can we do to significantly reduce the pain points? Of course, the other option is to fast track and reduce the cost of conversion to CNG. The cost of conversion now is too high. The rate of conversion is low. So government can fast track conversion. It can fast track the reduction in the cost. Some of the monies coming to government now should be used to significantly reduce the cost of conversion. So you can have a lot more people converting, and the impact of the price of petrol on a lot of us will be reduced. Nobody's talking about diesel or aviation fuel because that has settled into the economy. Where we have a significant problem is petrol and vehicles that depend on petrol. If we can very quickly move them into CNG, then there will be less concern about whether the price of petrol is this amount or that amount. So the real job is to achieve very significant conversion of CNG, because right now there is nothing we can do about the cost of petrol. The capacity to provide subsidy has practically evaporated. If you look at the fiscals of Nigeria now, you look at the monthly revenue, you look at the debt service per month, in most months they are equal. So we collect money and we pay debts. Essentially, we are running the government of borrowed money. All the current expenditure, if you look at the structure of our budget today, you look at how much is used for debt, how much revenue is collected, it's almost equal. So we can only bring back subsidy by borrowing a lot more. And the amount of subsidies we need now are far higher than what was there before the present administration came into office, because we'll be borrowing at the rate of about 1,600 to the dollar. The previous government was borrowing at the rate of subsidized now. In the last few months, when subsidy continued, we were almost hitting twice the subsidy that was being drawn by the previous administration. So the government does not have that option of going back to subsidy, but bringing significant, very significant social welfare benefits, significant traction in reducing the costs and increasing the speed of conversion to CNG. That will provide some relief. We also expect, that's why it's important to see what happens in the next few weeks. We expect that this very, very significant reduction in the pressure on foreign currency by selling
crude to the refineries in Naira could significantly reduce the exchange rates. And if the exchange rate comes down, we expect to see a significant reduction in imported inflation.
If I may come in. Mr. Dania, if I may come in, if I hear you clearly, you're saying that our capacity to borrow has been depleted significantly. That means that it's a route we may not want to tour as a government, because the government belongs to all of us. But I'm wondering what is left to Nigerians, because are you saying this is more like a cul-de-sac, a point of no return? There's nothing that can be done. Nigerians should continue to bear this pain. I wanted to be very clear, because Nigerians are angry. They had a life before this government came in. It may not have been a perfect life, but it has gotten worse with the policy, the twin policy of unification of the FX market, and of course, the removal of subsidy. So emphatically, response I would like you to get to us. Are you saying that we just have to wait this out and see how it plays out? Because the proposal you're making about CNG and all other relief points, it's not going to move the needle, I can tell you for free.
Yes. Yeah, so the point is, yes, you can tell the government borrow. If, like I tell you, you know, go and borrow to solve a family problem, and then you look around, it's like, okay, I don't have the money to pay if I go and borrow. And so, what do I do? Nigerians are extremely angry that they find themselves in an extremely difficult situation. But I'm not a politician, so I'm not going to give you any promise that you can't see a line of sight to fulfilling. The government says it was not subsidizing in last, but you and I, all Nigerians know they were subsidizing. They have reached a point where even that subsidizing, which was called cost recovery by NNPC, is becoming difficult for NNPC to continue. And the financial statements produced by them show that they were really getting to a point where they cannot do that. So we can't get the government to say, okay, go and borrow more and give and subsidize. Then the government says, okay, where do we borrow from? So Nigerians are very angry. Like you said, you are in a cul-de-sac, and how do you get out of it? Unfortunately, the calibration of the reforms is the problem. If we had planned first remove subsidy gradually over time, and then deal with the foreign currency unification thereafter, we would probably not be in as difficult a situation as we are now. We wanted to solve our problems at the same time, and that is why we are where we are. We have to, it's probably even easier now for government to go back to have a managed foreign currency market than to go back to fuel subsidy, because the managed foreign currency market is within the hands, within the control of the central bank. But removal of subsidy is not in our hands, because we have to pay the current price. It doesn't matter whether the petrol comes from Dangote or from foreign refineries or other refineries in Nigeria. There's a third party that produces fuel, and you have to pay the price. And you have to find the money either from your revenue or from borrowing. We don't have the revenue flows to do it. Our borrowing capacity is dried up, not because there's no money to lend to Nigeria, but because our paying capacity is exhausted by our current obligations. So the clear path is, unfortunately, will be slow. Then if a politician tells you that he can do something else, well, we have had that story for the last 9 months, and it just hasn't worked out.
Just a follow-up before my colleague comes in, caller comes in. So let's even say, from what we've seen, it appears the government has not been saying the truth, because both the FX deregulation was a managed one. The subsidy regime was a managed one. They denied for as long as it is, and they still are not clear on it. It's still, even the NNPC joined in that falsehood. Permit me to use that word, because NNPC had said, no, we're not paying subsidy. What we're paying is shortfall. What exactly is the meaning of that? Missing and lost all means something is not there. So that was so on that hand, let's not even go there. So there's a model I'm looking at that as an expert I would like you to speak to. Before now, part of what brought us here is the fact that only NNPC was bringing PMS into the country or petroleum products, or some kind of monopsony. Now with the Dangote refinery, the only refinery that seems to be working about to roll out products for us, we're now running perhaps a bilateral monopoly. Still the same NNPC that will be an off-taker. Are we playing? What is the sense in it? Just help us make sense of the situation.
Okay, so why is NNPC the only off-taker? All the other importers in Nigeria can easily import petrol. Very easy. But because they are independent, private-owned businesses, they will not carry any losses, whatever name you call it, as you said, whether it's shortfall or subsidy. If you bring petrol today and it lands at, say, 1,200 naira per liter, any private importer must sell at 1,200 plus a profit. It's only NNPC that brings in the product at 1,200 and sells it at 600. And it tells you, oh, I'm not subsidizing, but there's a shortfall. I mean, the semantics itself, it's something else. And Nigerians are looking at it and say, so the fact is, we have been subsidized by NNPC out of their profits or their expected profits. There's no private business that will do that, because private businesses they rely on either borrowed money from banks or their shareholders' funds. So no private importer will bring in petrol at 600, at 1,200 and sell at 600. That's the only reason why NNPC continues to be the sole importer. All the other marketers have the capacity, they have the financial capacity, they have the equipment, and they are ready to import, so long as they can make a small profit, no matter how low, on bringing in the products. But when you bring in the products and someone else who is not a party to your transaction tells you that, okay, you can bring the product at 1,200, but you have to sell it at 600. And if you dare to sell it at 1,300, the union will go on strike, the Nigerians will be screaming. And so the private the marketers are saying, okay, fine, we will wait. If NNPC brings the product, we will sell. We will help NNPC to sell it. Since some way they have a way of managing their shortfall, but no private importer is going to ever do that. So that's why it's a monopoly created a situation that the government has found itself by removing the subsidy without that calibration of a process that will make it affordable over time. If there was a time frame, for example, let's say 12 months or 15 months of gradually removing the subsidy while these other things are being done, you are right that the CNG process started too late and is too little. But if the CNG process was in place from May last year, and by now, let's say 50-60% of our vehicles were now on CNG, then few people will worry about the price of petrol, because if your car on CNG, you don't even care what the kind of petrol is. But right now, the CNG conversion process is too little and it's not getting traction that we need to deal with it. But really and truly, that is the solution. Getting as many vehicles as possible out of dependence of petrol and hoping that the foreign exchange rate will come down once we stop spending 40% of our monthly foreign exchange bill on imported refined products. Right now, we spend about between 30 and 40% of our monthly foreign exchange on importing petrol and some of the other products that we still import, some amount of diesel and aviation fuel. So there's a real hope that the foreign exchange rate will come down, but we have to see how it works out in these next few months. A politician may tell you some other things are possible, but the reality is that the options are very few as where we stand now today.
Now, in managing what seems to be a difficult situation and what is being projected as a possible end to this monopoly and the continuing importation of petroleum products, Dangote is rolling out already. Questions are being asked as to why it is waiting for the NNPC to unveil its recent price adjustment for it to roll out its own, or to announce its own pricing, because it's a private player. So are we saying, or are we expecting to see a higher price by Dangote when it announces its own price? And with the projections also of the commencement of production of the Port Harcourt refinery, how will that also, make the situation a little easier on Nigerians with availability?
I think part of the problem is we, as your colleague has mentioned, how our government communicates with the rest of us Nigerians. Dangote is not a petroleum retailer. Dangote does not have petrol stations. No refinery has any business with the price at which you buy petrol at your petrol station. Dangote is a factory and it has an ex-factory price. If you want to buy my petrol from my factory, a Dangote factory, this is the price at my gates. So whoever wants to buy, NNPC, anybody can go to Dangote now and buy at a price. In fact, Dangote has no business announcing any price to anyone. Dangote can only communicate to an interested buyer, whether it is NNPC or the other petroleum marketing company, that if you come to my factory, this is the price I'm going to sell this product to you. Whatever price you are selling to anywhere, to anybody, is not the business of Dangote. And the government are very clear and stop putting Dangote in a situation that it does not deserve to be. I think it's very important to stress that. Dangote raised 20 billion to build a refinery.
So for
it has those monies to pay. So it's not going to be involved in determining the price at which petrol is sold at any petrol station. It's the business of whoever buys the petrol from Dangote and then says, I have this petrol, doesn't care where I get it from, whether it's from Dangote or from the foreign refinery, this is the price I'm going to sell it at the pump. And we Nigerians can quarrel with that and say the price at the pump is too high. And government being responsible to us, we can say, we can complain to government that this price is too high. What can you do about it? But it's unfortunate that Dangote is being brought into a level of the conversation where it really has no part to play. That is the reality of it.
But with its own rollout, it would mean increased supply in petroleum products, yes, at least in the economy. So what are your projections, yes, about it? So this increased supply, will it bring down the price of petrol or to increase it?
It will definitely reduce the price by certain obvious factors. Our crude used to be taken on vessels to foreign countries to be refined. The cost of moving the crudes to those countries, the cost of insurance, the cost of freight, the cost of services is removed because the crude moves from our oil wells to Dangote refinery. The refined products used to be brought back to Nigeria by vessels, and we pay the freights, the insurance and services, and clearing at the ports. Those two costs are removed from Dangote's factory price. So the cost of Dangote at the factory is much lower than the landing cost of importing refined products. So that reduction in price has been estimated at something between 15 to 20%. That reduction will happen without anybody doing anything. It's just a cost of the fact that it's saved. Now, Nigerians are so angry with the whole situation that not many people are waiting for that to manifest. They go to the pump now, they see a price, and they're very angry. And that process of the products coming out and beginning to see some steady reduction in price will definitely happen. It is just that right now Nigeria are in a very hard place, and they are not willing, or they are not in the mood to understand or wait for that to happen. But it will definitely happen. The price of petroleum products will start coming down. It's not only Dangote, there are other refineries being built, from 200,000 here, 100,000 there. across the country being built, and the price will come down. But the fact is that Nigerians are not asking about what will happen in 6 months or 9 months. They want to know about the price today, unfortunately, because of where we are. But definitely the price will come down significantly over time. Because as more people come into the business, even the existing refiners will be happy with lower margins. That's what happens when supply increases. So if you are making 20% profit now and more people come into the business, everybody will have to say, well, we have to compete and reduce prices. And you will see the prices coming down. But that is quite down the road. Problem now is what, as you say, as all Nigerians are saying, is the anger resulting from the escalation of prices of everything, electricity, petrol, everything happening at the same time. The reason is that at the beginning of May last year, we did not calibrate these reforms. We did not say, let's sort out, for example, removal of subsidy over a 6 or 9 month period as we aggressively bring in CNG. And then when we see that that's stabilized, then we start unification of foreign currency. If we had done that, perhaps we will not find ourselves in an extremely difficult cul-de-sac that we are in now, where our options are very few.
On a final note, Mr. Adahosa, it's a double-edged question. I'm concerned about, because you speak for organized private sector and the business community, so I'm concerned about those who are employed in the private sector, the business community, and some of the businesses affected. On the one hand, how will these people get by? Labour said that the promise from the government was, we're not going to give you 250,000 naira minimum wage, but at the same time, we'll not increase the price of petrol. So let's do 70,000 and the price will remain the same. So do you think that is fair? And do you think it will be a good idea for the NLC to now begin to push for an increased minimum wage for obvious reasons? Anyway, that's on the one hand. The other part is some businesses that will be affected. Depot owners, for example, billionaire businessman Femi Otedola, in that statement he put out, said, well, depots might need to start selling for crap, basically packing up and selling for crap. So is that something you're also concerned about, the depots that will be affected as a result of this? So it's double-edged, Mr. Dawson.
Yes. I think that's why what I referred to in the way the government communicates with us, because the complexities of the business are real. And no matter how you try to make a political statement, will promise that some things will happen. An economy like water is very stubborn. It will flow in a natural landscape. So when government promised that it will not increase the price of petrol, we all have to ask ourselves, if I don't produce a product and I don't have absolute control over my cost of production, I don't have any control over the cost of production by a third party, what is the basis for my saying I will not increase the price of that product? I do not supply crude to the refineries in Nigeria or abroad at a fixed price to enable them produce the petrol at a fixed price. On what basis can I make a promise to anyone that I will not increase that price after you accept 70%?
So was that a lie from the government if it indeed said that?
Yeah, so that is really the point about communication, political communication with Nigerians. What is the basis for government saying we can control the price of something we don't produce? The federal government of Nigeria does not produce petrol as we speak. It hasn't done so for decades from their own refineries. A third party is producing the product at their own cost, at their own risk. And I sit here as government and say, that product that is coming from that refinery, I'm going to fix the price. I'm not going to increase it. So that's the situation we find ourselves.
And the depot, quickly, we have 30 seconds, the depots.
The depot, Femi Otedola brought out a major issue that in previous conversations, we had said that these matters are important matters to be dealt with in the boardrooms of all the oil companies, the IOCs, the petroleum marketers. Whenever you have a disruption in an economy, there are winners and there are losers. If you take any disruption, whether it was mobile phones, there were losers and there were winners. Any disruption in an economy, you will get winners and losers. The depot owners have said that the business model of the Dangote refinery cuts them out. And they say that in most countries, which is factual, refineries are not engaged in distribution. In other words, you don't take a truck to a refinery to lift petrol. In a lot of countries, the petrol leaves the refinery in a bulk form by pipelines to for example, in Nigeria, the petrol should leave Dangote refinery to the depots of these individual players. But we do not have the infrastructure in Nigeria for that model. Because in that model, you have to have pipelines under Dangote refinery that are just moving the products that they are produced straight to pipelines, to NNPC depots, to the depots of the private refineries, through a vast a pipeline network, which you have in places like Europe. You have pipelines running all the way from Russia to Western Europe. We do not have that infrastructure. So Dangote was constrained to go into that level of business by building those giant gantries you find in Dangote refinery, several hundreds of them, so that the trucks can come in. With those trucks coming in, the depot owners really have no significant business to do, because the trucks can go directly from Dangote refineries to the filling station. So the depot owners are saying, that sorry, we are caught out of this game. So it is one of those issues with disruptions in the economy. When, for example, you don't need typewriters anymore, laptops are disappearing, and so it's a painful part of this conversation, which has been going on behind the scene.
Well, always have to innovate so we don't become dinosaurs. But we'll have to thank you so much, Mr. Idahosa. I think it's been a very interesting conversation with you. We've been speaking with the president of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry, LCCI, Mr. Gabriel Idahosa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a moment now, and when we return, we'll talk about another issue that may or may not be eaten into your pocket. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.
The quick wins are already being implemented. Those include waivers of taxes on food, on diesel, CNG, renewable energy, and we've got some on pharmaceutical, we've got agri. So the quick wins are already being implemented. But the significant ones are the ones that we're about getting into now, where we're trying to pass new laws, amend the constitution, agree on our spending policy, borrowing policy, what do we do with local government, so that people can begin to feel the real impact of the sacrifices they're making, as well as the impact of government in a positive way. It's supposed to be a debate for economists. They have professors, PhD holders, and it's good for us to have this kind of debate. It's healthy for society, such that the final decisions we make are the ones that are actually indeed necessary for our countries. So my personal view is that you need economic recovery, because if you stabilize at the points where you don't want to be, it affects the whole economy. If you focus on recovery, then you recover to a point where you're comfortable, and then you stabilize at that point. It was good that we had two professors, both economists, and they had different views. So hopefully, before they conclude this conference, they'll be able to debate it even further, supported by evidence and data, and be able to advise us.
Welcome back. It's now time to talk tax. That's the man in charge of all the reforms in terms of fiscal and tax reforms in Nigeria, Taiwo Yedele. And if you look at the document and some of the things they are proposing, they are quite brilliant at surface level or face value. It's whether those implementation will follow through to the letter. One of the highlights of his conversation with our colleague that people took out was a 10% increase in VAT in next few months, which is 2025, and may go up to 15% in 2030. But he gave an explainer that 97% of SMEs are being factored in such that there will be so much reduction to the point of zero, but they'll tax the people in the middle income and the other 3%, as well as the very wealthy, to make up for some of the reduction that they will be, to make up for some of the reduction for the lower ebb of the economy, taxing more of the people that have a lot of money and the middle class. The argument about middle class is also another question. That's why I've been joined in the program by the former chairman, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Abuja District, Dr. Emeka Nwabuzo. Dr. Nwabuzo, thank you so much for coming on the program.
And thank you for having me.
My assumption is that you are quite familiar with the work of the Fiscal and Tax Reform Committee set up by the president, led by Taiwo Oyedele, and he has made some very strong proposals. If I understand him very well, it says things like VAT on essential food, health, education, transportation, and housing. The aspiration is to be literally zero so that they can tax other things from the rich and the wealthy, as well as the middle class, and a few percentage of the SMEs and all of that. I want you to help us break down some of the things you've observed and how this will work, because at the end of the day, it's about implementation, isn't it?
I totally agree with you. Well, we need to first of all look at the background issue on the VAT. What is value added? VAT is, we call it value added tax. And it's a type of tax that what we call consumption tax. Consumption tax is actually levied on value, that is added to goods and services at each stage of production. Now, the bottom line is that those that actually bear the brunt of VAT is the final consumers. Now, having laid that, historically, we started VAT in Nigeria in about 1993 during the regime of President, there's a military head of state, Ibrahim Badamos Babangida. And as at then it was implemented, we have it at 5%. Then in 2019, during the Finance Act, Personal Finance Act, it was increased to 7.5%. Now, basically, the primary objective of introducing VAT is to see how we can diversify government's revenue source, because there is so much dependence on issue of oil, So that is just issue on the background, historical review as to VAT. Now, coming back to the question you asked me as to the work that Oyedele is doing with the tax policy team, is a very welcome development. However, I do have my reservations. Like I told you, I stated that the VAT being a consumption tax is borne by the final consumers. Yes, they have tried to, make some incentives for the low income earners, but it is very easy for you to pass burden of VAT. It's very, very practically easy because it's an indirect tax. So that is where we are going to be looking at it in that angle. How are they going to implement it in such that at the end of the day, these people you are looking at, these people you say you have been exempted from the bracket, will not be affected. So these are just my preliminary comments. Maybe as we go along, I will explain.
So let's build on that preliminary comment. Why are you worried that taxing the high end of the economy will eventually trickle down? Because he gave a scenario. He said not everybody will afford to go to, say for instance, you buy a sandwich in a regular restaurant that they are now trying to increase the turnover for people that should not pay VAT from 25% to 50%. So a regular restaurant, because your turnover or your sales in a year is not up to 50 million naira, you don't pay tax. So you don't pass on that consumption tax to anyone. But if you're eating that same sandwich in, say, Hilton or Sheraton or one of the big hotels, you have to pay because not everybody can afford to get to those places and the prices they put. So I want to understand why you are worried about how it will trickle down to the common man.
Hey, first and foremost is issue of price inflation. Now, you talk about the issue of sandwich, which you gave an instance. The question is, do we have a different market for every set of people? do we have a different set of market? It's still the same general market. Now, you give an instance, okay, like transport computing, somebody having a sandwich there. In transport computing, is it only the big shots? Is it only the big guys we have there? There are other people that are there that equally work there, which are low or medium level workers. They still feed from there. And they will still be tempted to still buy those properties, even within their meager earning. So what I'm looking at it actually is from two things, or rather three. One of them is the issue of price inflation. Increasing VAT rates will definitely lead to increase in prices of goods and service. I will give you a takeaway from, for example, what is happening in the issue of fuel. Everybody now use excuse of fuel to increase their prices. Even ordinary keke, a small distance of about 100 meters that you can normally do before for 50 naira or 100 naira, they will not tell you it's 500 naira. Even Uber, for instance, where distances of 500 naira before are now going for 2005. So we don't still have a proper regulation in Nigeria. That is why I'm saying it is very easy, but implementation is going to be the problem. So if it's not well implemented, we're going to have serious price inflation. It is going to still go back to what we're trying to run away from, which is reduction in consumption. So people are not going to look at what are those things. They are going to prioritize what they are going to consume.
Mr. Nwabuzor, so he said no VAT for basic food, including semi-processed, health, education, housing. Those are the things they are looking at because they feel that these are the things that take a chunk, maybe 80-90% of monies from the pockets of the average common man, which is why they are transferring it to the bigger boys. Allow me to use that word. So if you were to do some modification to this proposal that I said at surface value looks good, what modification would you propose? Because the way you're looking at it, you're saying if you increase VAT from 7.5% for people above 50 million as turnover, there is no way it will not trickle down in the entire economy. And they are trying to increase it to 15% even in 2030. So if you were to propose a modification to the, allow me to say, good intention, what will it be?
You see, I'm just concerned, where my basic concern is implementation. Because, for instance, now, how do we even determine those that are below 25 million threshold or 50 million threshold? We don't have accurate data to even deal with in the first place. If I said, just like you rightly used the word big boys, a big boys can decide to pretend to be a small boy overnight. If I'm having a business where I'm dealing with 50 million, I can decide to trickle it and probably use 2 or 3 other small businesses to make sure that none of them is up to 25 million. Am I not been able to evade it at the end of the day? So we have a lot of basic issues, which is issue of data. If we have accurate data, it will be easy to be able to implement these issues, these recommendations very, very well. But as it is today, we are still going to have issues with implementation. But it's a laudable proposal. That is the truth.
Now, Mr. Nwabuzor, in protecting small businesses, following up on your worry that at the end of the day, final consumers will be affected, the projection is for 2025. And amid all of the other futuristic projections also about the potential reduction in the price of petrol, which pretty much also affects other aspects of the economy, do you project that by 2025, small businesses, the real sector now, which is the backbone of the economy, really will also have that time for recovery, giving the projected reduction in the pump price of petrol and the fact that the implementation of this VAT will not commence until 2025?
The issue is we're working on assumptions, and these assumptions are not realistic. A lot of factors affect businesses in Nigeria. we look, okay, like if you have asked me as a last year, I can't even predict that we'll be talking about dollar over 1,600 presently today. And if you ask those in the market now with anything, they will tell you dollar is high, exchange rate is high. You will now bring the issue of fuel problem added to it. So there are a lot of other issues, other factors that can definitely impair whatever you think that would have been savings to this informal sector you are looking at. They are going to affect their growth. They are going to affect their expansion to be able to bring them to the bigger level in which it's okay. They are now bigger boys. They will go into the tax net. So the economy itself, the reform should be holistic. This piecemeal approach is not going to be implemented very, very well. Because we know ourselves in Nigeria, we know the way we go about our implementations. We have very laudable policies, very, very laudable policies, but at the end of the day, how do we implement it? The loopholes is so much. We don't have data, technological know-how, even information circulation, the awareness is still very, very low. These are factors that you cannot totally take away from when you are making those assumptions.
So what are your recommendations then in covering the loopholes and, according to the concerns of Nigeria, ensuring that the taxes collected really do get into the coffers of the government and corruption is eliminated in the tax collection process?
Okay. Well, when you're talking about issue of loopholes in tax collection, there is a whole lot of things to be done. First and foremost is the issue of data that we're talking about in Nigeria. Today we talk about NIMS, we talk about BVN, we talk about we don't have accurate data. That is one. Then two, the issue of deployment of technology and the use of it is another problem. For instance, now, if you go to FRS now, the way the tax promise is, the program is prepared, is so that even the interest and penalty on taxes alone is more than the tax liability over a period of 2 years. How do you manage that? How can a business cope with that kind of implementation? So that is another issue. Then talking about the issue of loophole, then you talk about the fact that on a scale of looking at what the businesses are doing, how do we bring proper audit so that it doesn't stay so much of long time before audits are carried out? We are in a self-assessment regime where people file taxes based on what they have done. But by the time you leave out this issue of review or audit more than necessary, some FRS presently are doing about 6 year back audit, 4 years back audit. What is stopping them from doing audit on year-to-year basis? This can reduce the impact of what's it called? Issue of tax fraud, let me use it that way, or issue of the loophole within, so that the government can be able to have more tax collected, and not just collected, but collected accurately and on time.
And there's more to share, Mr. Mabuzo. Let me just reel out some of the recommendations by the Committee on Fiscal Policy. Anyone earning about 1.5 million a month or less will see their personal income tax come down. Companies will have income tax rate come down also by 30% over the next 2 years to 25%. That's significant, and that's something to share, and will definitely reduce the weight on the pockets of Nigerians in this middle income cadre, don't you think?
See, that is the angle of issue of direct taxes. That is where we are heading to. When you have issue of direct taxes, this is what have serious effects on people's income. If we are looking at reducing direct taxes, good and fine. That is a welcome development, because it's going to allow people to have more disposable income to be able to either for consumption or for investment, which equally have its own ripple effect on the economy. Because when people have enough disposable income, either in consumption or in saving, it is still good for the economy. But when so much is eroded from the hands of people is an issue. And that is why I talk about the issue of indirect tax, though it is one of the best ways for government to raise revenue, but the negative effect of it is high on the general public, knowing fully well that the final consumers are the ones to bear the brunt of the taxes at the end of the day. It's very easy to pass the burden of indirect tax.
Right. Right. So I'm thinking about the implementation of this. Well, if the president eventually approves it when he returns, things like removing the tax on food, raw food and semi-processed food items, on transportation. Some wonder, I hope the conductors and the bus drivers are in on this. The part about rent as well, wondering, okay, how would you know now? Get it, because the price of rent keeps going up. That's if they're not even charging for 2 years or more. So some of these things are still very gray, and it brings me to my question. Do you agree with these 2 points that have been made? First, Mr. Taiwo Idele says that over time, it's actually the poor people that have been paying taxes rather than the rich people. And he said that, you know what, it's time for poor people to take a break. And that's why they made the point about if you order a taxi, for example, you're probably rich, so that should be taxed. If you eat food in luxury places, that should be taxed. So do you agree with him that poor people have been the ones bearing the brunt of taxation in Nigeria rather than rich people? An example that I was told recently, local government in Ogun State, stopping, what's it called now? Dispatch riders, harassing them, now even stopping people with private vehicles, asking for this and that. When people are saying, well, how about you go to big companies, request for taxes rather than harassing people who are living hand to mouth? That's on the one hand. Do you also agree with Bill Gates that, tax collection in Nigeria is really low? So 2 people have made 2 different statements. Do you agree with them?
Okay, yeah, you are talking about 2 things. One is the fact that issue of low tax collection. Then talk about issue of the fact that the informal sector they are being the one paying taxes, so that we should look at the big boys now to begin to pay taxes. Yeah, I totally agree with Taiwo. I totally agree with him. Why do I agree with him? You see, when you look at the issue of tax collection in Nigeria, yes, tax collection is low, but people are paying more. So there are 2 divergent issues. One is issue of tax collection. One of these is tax payments. Tax payment is high, I can tell you, because Nigerians pay 3 different types of taxes. We pay the formal tax, which is what is recognized within the data in which they are using to measure the GDP. Then there's the informal tax and the implicit tax. These are taxes that people are paying that government do not have record of it. Just like you alluded to the state you mentioned, where they are even collecting taxes from wheelbarrow and the rest, wheelbarrow pushers and the rest. This set of people are actually paying, but the records are not there. So it's more or less something that are off the system. So how can you now use those as a measure for our GDP? Then talking about issue of tax collection, yeah, I agree that tax collection is low. Why is it low? There are a lot of reasons why it's low. There is issue of widespread tax evasion. There is the angle of lack of compliance. There is the aspect of limited tax education and awareness. All these things combined are one of the reasons why there is low tax collection. Like I said, there is a difference between low tax collection and low tax payments. I do not believe that there's low tax payment, but I strongly believe that there is low tax collection. Then the second aspect you said, issue of the lower people or lower cadre paying more tax, that is the truth.
Right.
The big boys are not actually paying tax. If you walk into Abuja today, look at all the mansions, look at all the estates that are there. Where did they get the funds to do it? It's not a poor man on the street that can be able to afford to build an estate. Are all these places taxed? Have the income they use in building all those estates, are they taxed? That is where the big boys are out of the tax net. So they need to bring the big boys into the tax net and actually allow the poor ones to breathe, according to our president.
In fact, you took the words right out of Nigerians' mouth. Let the poor breathe, indeed. Now that petrol prices have gone up, you just wonder, how much more Nigerians can take. So do you think that there should be any moral ground now to increase collection? Because whether you like it or not, and I need to make the point, when you focus on the rich people, there's a tendency for them to also mark up their own prices. You get, and you know how that ripple effect will affect everybody eventually. So at the end of the day, the poor will still be at the receiving end in some way, maybe not as much. So how much morality do you think this government has to look into the faces of Nigerians and say we want to collect more, when it looks like they've given 70,000 naira minimum wage and they are collecting it back with the increase in the price of petrol? So taxing them again when you've been collecting more. Do you think there's any moral ground? And I'm talking about morality here, for people to now say, okay, fine, I want to willingly pay tax.
You see, it boils down to the question your colleague in the studio asked me earlier. We are just looking at issues very narrowly. We are looking at issues from just one perspective. I mentioned there are a whole lot of factors affecting business. I gave you an issue of forest that, as of last year, if you have asked me as a professional analyst that prices of value of FX will be about 1617 per dollar today, I would agree it with you. Then, if you talk about issue of petroleum, we are talking about, okay, if subsidy was removed, but I don't even believe that subsidy was removed, because as far as I'm concerned, I felt it's just a price increase, and that is what is going on now because prices continue to increase. Then you now talk about issue of increasing taxes again. These are going to be so much burden on the businesses. So we need to look at issues from holistic perspective, not just on issue of taxes alone. There are other factors that are affecting business that if all the factors are okay, then we can consider issue of tax. But as we're talking about tax, there are other elephants that the taxpayers are carrying behind them. So it's huge. So that is another discussion that you need to look into when you are taking that discussion on issue of whether taxes should be increased or not. Then you look at the angle of implementation. Just like you rightly said, the big boys in the society, how much taxes are they paying? I make an instance about issue of properties. These people there's so much money within this sector. And these people that are using this money, have they paid the actual taxes? We are going after the little ones that are trying to make a living with their little earnings, with their little disposable income. But the big people that are actually having these funds, utilizing them carelessly and unconsciously, how much have they been into tax net?
Dr. Emeka Nwabuzo, I must thank you so much. I can see your concern, just like all of us have concern for the poor or the people that are not so, they have nots. Because it appears that everything rises and falls on the poor, however you look at it. And so, as a people, we must do the best we can to ensure that the poor really breathe. So we'll hold the president accountable to that statement that he made, because the poor have really, really gone through hell and warm water. So I must thank you, Dr. Emeka Nwabuzo, former chairman, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Abuja District. Thank you for your insights on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we will take a quick break. When we come back, we'll take off this of serious talk and all of that to something quite light and creative. You meet a lady who was the first plus-size woman to contest in that particular pageantry that happened over the weekend. Join us again.
Welcome back to the morning brief. Now, beauty is not just in the eye of the beholder. Beauty also has an entire value chain, from clothing to hair to makeup. And of course, there's also the inner constitution that also requires the beauty to come out all perfect. Let's see just how much ground in all of these talking points that we can cover as we'll welcome to the show this morning Miss Ufa Dania, Miss Kwara, who represented Kwara State, I believe, at the Miss Universe Nigeria pageant.
Yes.
Good morning and welcome to the Morning Brief.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we're happy to have you too. And you're looking beautiful.
Thank you.
And colorful.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's start from the just concluded pageant. Share with us your experience before we begin to, talk about you proper.
Okay. I guess being the very first plus size person to apply for this, before I had applied for the pageant, honestly, I was having a lot of anxiety and just fear because of the backlash that I could probably get, and just people's bias, because they always feel like beauty only comes in one form, and for someone to come out and say, oh yeah, I'm running for this, it scared me. But then I'm someone who tries to do the daring. I don't stop myself. If I want to do something, I go out there and do it. So I decided to go over my fear, and I applied and I got in, so that boosted me up for the camp activities and all. So when I went for camp, I showed up and I showed off. I made sure that even if I'm not a conventional person, I must stand out regardless of anything. So the experience was actually really nice. I feel like I've come out a different person than I was when I entered, and it has boosted my confidence even more than it was already, and I just feel happy for whatever comes after this now. Yeah.
I can see how excited you are. But let's get to that experience. You walking into the camp. So on the street, we call it Slim Shady. All of these slender girls, with all the numbers that Bukola is way more familiar than I am. And then you walk in and give us what you felt as a reception from your fellow contestant. Because it's important we ask that question, because of people like you who would have felt, this is not for me. So you're now a hero for them.
Yeah. Funny enough, when I entered, the contestants were actually very receptive to me. A lot of people actually walked up to me because I was the very first person to put out my video and say, I want to apply for Miss Universe Nigeria. So a lot of them came to me and told me that, because I saw your video, actually, that's why I came out. And then when they saw me, they were like, wow, you're my hero, you're amazing, you inspire me. So there was already a positive, environment walking in. Even my mindset as well was positive. So it just felt like positive plus positive equals to more positive.
How rigorous was it for you?
Oh, it was quite a lot. I don't know if anybody has done NYC. To me, it was much more worse than NYC camp, because you wake up by 5 a.m. and you don't sleep till at least 12 a.m. in the next day, and it keeps on going day in, day out. And then the heels you have to wear, oh god, I think that was my biggest fear, those heels, because I said, why do they need to be wearing so tight, or where are we trying to get to? So that was actually the most toughest part for me, those heels, and walking here, walking there. You always have to be presentable, you always have to be poised, elegant. Those didn't really faze me, but just the timing and the sleep schedule and those heels, those my biggest issues in the camp.
And we really can't talk enough about you being the first plus size woman. Besides how your co-contestants received you, what about coming out on stage, facing the crowd, wearing your bikini, your evening wear, and all of the other costumes that you had to come out in? What was it like for you, and how did the audience receive you firsthand?
Okay, I would say, for me, I'm a content creator, right? So all my life, I've always kind of been in front of the stage. Even the university I went to, American University of Nigeria, I was actually Miss American University of Nigeria till I graduated. So being in front of crowds, being in front of people, I actually feed off the energy. I don't feel afraid. So to me, it was okay, showtime, let's show them what we got. And as I came out with that whole boldness, everyone was woo! And as they're cheering on me too, I'm also feeling that thing. So I'm also giving them more. So I wasn't really faced by the audience. I actually looked forward to seeing that audience so that it can give me the most pizzazz, if that's what I can say.
So very demure. So that's what it is. Very demure.
Yes.
So
very demure.
For you now, it's your message. What would be your message to plus size ladies? Go get it, or what exactly are you saying?
I would tell you, never doubt yourself, never look down on yourself, never tell yourself you're not enough, you're not good enough, you're not pretty enough. You are more than capable. You have everything within you that you need to succeed in life, and don't let any other person's perspective on you shadow down on how you feel about yourself. Go get whatever you want to do. So that's what
let's unpack the many parts that you are. I'm looking at your bio on your page. Photographer, creative director, stylist, filmmaker, philanthropy, and all of that.
Yes.
So let's take it one at a time.
Okay.
Which comes first for you?
Okay, I would say being a content creator was the first thing that, because I started when I was like 2018. So like being in that creative space kind of blossomed me to other spaces, because university, I actually started as an engineering student, telecoms, because I'm a science geek and all, but my university is a liberal arts university where they force you to take courses out of your major. So I took a course called basic photography and videography in my second year, and that kind of just like opened up my mind to be like, okay, no, this is actually what I want to do. So that year I changed from my engineering to communications and multimedia design, specifically radio, TV, and film. So that's how the photography and the filmmaking comes in.
You see.
Yeah, and then the philanthropy. After I won Miss America University of Nigeria, that office, you're put into the community. You work directly with the community director, so you are exposed to a lot of issues that are in the Adamawa, and because it's based in Yola, so that opened my mind to like a lot of things that were happening in the country and how I could also help as well. So that's how my philanthropy started. I started by doing projects in school, painting schools, doing spelling bees, and doing like support groups for people. And then after I graduated, it translated into me creating my own NGO where I deal with like child education, female empowerment, arts and creativity development, and mental health advocacy. So that's how they all kind of synergize into one piece.
Yes. Our colleague
Kayode has questions for you.
Absolutely. Ufa, Kayode here from Abuja.
Hi.
I must say I'm a big fan of your work.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to talk about a few things that you brought to the fore. On the one hand, you're originally from Edo State, but you represented Kwara. Speaks to why Nigeria is one and should be one.
Yeah.
Fantastic. The other part of this is, I mean, you didn't win the pageant in some sense, but you won Miss Charismatic and you won the hearts of a lot of people, particularly South Africans.
Yeah.
Now, it was like you just walked right in the middle of a Cold War of sorts. So I'd like you to speak to us about, about that experience. South Africans appear to be voting for you to spite Chidinma Adesina, and you with your charisma, you carried it well. Speak to us about that.
Okay, so funny enough, when all of this was happening, like I said in camp, it's so rigorous, you barely even get to use your phone. So at first I didn't actually know that anything was happening in South Africa or whatever. But then I started seeing like trickling of like notifications and messages and all. You said the word spite. People say that, but personally, I don't know if it's spice, because I feel like, okay, before I came for this camp, I started this series on my Instagram where I called Road to Miss Universe Nigeria, and I showed like my personality. I feel like that's also where the charismatic came from. People saw that, okay, you can actually be a queen and also have a personality. So I feel like, I don't know how exactly my page got to them, but what I feel is the reception is a lot of them see themselves in me, because especially South African ladies, they're really like curvaceous and dark. So that was more of the message that I was getting on my own social media, like, oh, you're my sister, I see myself in you, you're curvy, you're a true African woman. So for me, I feel like they just saw somebody that they could relate with on a much more deeper level, which is why they voted for me. I wouldn't say they did it to spite Chidinma, because she still won, she still eventually won. So I would just say they saw something in me that maybe other people were not seeing, and they were like, okay, no, we have to vote for this lady. So that's, I would say, my experience.
And that just speaks to your brilliance as well, and how you have your head, you know, screwed right, handling issues as they come. And I must commend you, because it was something that could have gone south, but you carried on well, handled it well. So fantastic work. But I'd like to know, how's your relationship with Chidinma? Do you have a relationship?
Oh, yeah.
How is it if you have a relationship?
Okay, so we got to know each other in camp a little bit more, and like, she's such a very sweet and rather petite lady from what I first imagined, but she's really sweet and relatable. Like, she would like to acclimatize into like our space. So everybody, like even all the ladies in the camp, like at first that wasn't my fear. I thought that, okay, you know, when you're with ladies, they can be a little bit catty, but there was none of that. There was like a sisterhood that bonded everybody. In fact, on a specific day with Nutrify, there was this like round table where people get to share their like thoughts and like maybe trauma, and also like that specific day really helped everybody to bond and like get to know each other. So like our relationship is actually chill, like it's fine. Thank you.
And
fantastic. So let's talk about life after this, right? Well, maybe not life after this, but of course your journey. Moving on. What we are used to, or at least what the marketing world is used to, is putting slim ladies. You want to advertise fridge, You put lady. You want to
Sorry, I
advertise
didn't
pen.
hear
You
him
put
well.
slim lady. Right. Can you hear me?
No,
So
I
far?
wasn't hearing you. Now I
Okay.
can hear you.
So I was saying that what the marketing world is used to is when they want to advertise fridge, they put a slim lady.
Yeah.
When they want to advertise even a pen, there's a slim lady. So I know you have a job ahead of you, but speak to us about the reception you're getting, particularly from advertisers, people in that sector. Are you getting good attention? Are they telling you, we want you to be a part of this shoot. We want you to model for us.
Yeah.
Is that happening? If it is not, let us call them out right now.
No, it is happening because I actually have a shoot on Monday with a brand called Hartumba. I feel like a lot of people just saw the light in me, and the fact that I dared to be different already speaks about the kind of person I am. And I think the scope we are in the world right now, people are trying to move away from like the conventional beauty. So to have somebody come out and be unconventional but still be appealing, still be pleasant, a lot of people want to capitalize on that. So I would definitely say those who haven't seen me, please see me now. Yeah, but I definitely say that there have actually been a lot of opportunities, interviews, people wanted to talk to me because I feel like it's something that has not really been done. So everybody wants to know, like, how were you able to do this? How were you able to conquer the bullying, the cyber attacks, and all of that? So I would say, yeah, I've been getting positive reception.
And so when the endorsements come, remember to come and pay your tithe here at the Morning Brew.
No, all right, your taxes, you should say.
That's on a lighter note. So we're talking about Chidinma earlier on, and a lot has been said about, how the person who should have won should be, have residency here for some time and should have knowledge about Nigeria. Would you say that the crown went to the deserving one?
Yeah, I would say there are different scopes on looking about this. Their point about someone living in Nigeria and someone born in Nigeria is actually valid. But then at the same time, if you can look about around the performance in the competition, I wouldn't know what exact merit that the organization chose to pick their winner, but I would say she's somebody who if she would go out to the world, she would actually show up for Nigeria. But then when it comes to like the real nitty-gritty about maybe understanding the scope of Nigeria, she may have to get herself educated about that to be able to actually do the work that we need as Nigerians. That's what I would say.
So let's talk about your content creation side. You're many things. Now you've added more to that thing. So this new you, permit me to use that word, new you, how will it influence how you create content right now? Is it going to be the same old Dania with the things you usually do? Or this has given you a different scope and perspective, and you want to add maybe another layer to what you do? Maybe walk us through that.
Okay, so I feel like I would still be me, but then I would also amplify myself as well, because this platform helped me to like break out. So before in my content, I'm someone, I write a lot, I do pictures, but I never actually come out and speak. Nobody really hears my voice. But now I feel like a lot of people listen to me, so like there's no need for me to go back into my hiding cocoon. Like I would like to be more speaking on my platform, probably open like a YouTube channel where like I speak about different topics, because like as someone who just likes to talk, to be quite honest, so like in terms of like speaking more on like my platform, it would definitely be there. In terms of showing up more, like being more consistent, it would be there. And then incorporating more parts of my life, like my philanthropy, my styling, my photography, like just being more out there, to be quite honest.
I'm curious about that speaking part. Where were you speaking before?
Where was I speaking before?
Why were you not speaking as much as you now want to speak?
I would say I used to only speak to my friends, but like to be online, like put it online.
You don't want any backlash or trolls to come after you?
I've passed that level, so I don't even care about anybody trolling me, to be honest.
But speaking of which, you're a first-class film, radio, and television graduate.
Yes.
So why were you not confident enough about speaking before?
I wouldn't say it was confidence, but I feel like I'm someone that I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so like I feel like I was waiting for the right time to like blossom. So now that I'm out there, I feel like I'm already in that time, so like I can speak. I don't really know what was actually holding me back before, but like now I feel like I'm not going to hold myself back.
So what are your projections now to crystallize all of your gifts? Speaking of which, you have a philanthropy of your own, your community engagement, and your plans to have a YouTube channel and all of that. How are you going to bring it all together post your representation at the Miss Universe Nigeria pageant?
Sorry, can you tell me that question again?
How are you harmonizing all of these?
How am I going to harmonize all of them? Okay. I feel like, okay, probably I'm already doing some work on harmonizing it. So maybe now that I'm a little bit more out there, probably I should get like a manager who would be able to like properly manage me in all my endeavors, and to be able to share myself amongst those spaces and be like the best I can be. I think that's what I'll say for now. For now.
I'm sure it's going to get clearer
Yes.
from this point.
Yes.
Yeah, but thank you so much for your amazing...
No, not before we thank her. So, are you making money?
Am I making money? I mean, the shoot that I'm doing on Monday, I'm making money. But
no, I'm talking about your content creation.
Okay, am I making money? Yeah, I'm making money, but there's always room to grow to get more money. I mean, now that I've blown, so I can start charging it. I can start charging it.
You can start booking.
Yes, now.
I like your energy.
Thank you.
Confidence, and it's also important the message you're sending across. No disrespect to people that are bleaching their skin, but you've maintained your melanin, beautiful black color, and you are very unapologetic about it. And we will say thank you for being you. But my colleague there, I think he wants to ask you specifically how much money you make.
No, I must say, Jeffrey, you took that right out of my mouth about the skin. Yeah. This is a real pop-in, and I think that you're doing a whole lot of good, with that. That's a term. But final note, my question is, when are you going to South Africa?
When am I going to South Africa? I mean, tell South Africa to send me money. I'll be there like immediately, to be honest. I've actually been there once when I was 13, but
you're gonna get a hero's welcome.
I hope so. Like, I'm waiting for them. Like, my passport is with me anywhere I go to. So that's when they tell me to go, I'm out.
Well, above all, the hope is also there that this exchange and this magnanimity shown by Nigeria will heal all of the xenophobic issues that Nigerians experience in South Africa, and by extension, what Chidinma has gone through. And I believe that you have some thoughts in that regard as well. Yeah,
I just feel like South Africans, Nigeria, we just need to realize that we are all Africans. We are all brother, we're all sister. It doesn't matter whether you're from Nigeria or Gabon or Cote d'Ivoire. We all share the same type of skin. We all share this almost similar cultures and traditions. We need to just keep apart whatever happened thousands of years ago or hundreds of years ago and focus on the now. We're here. So we need to heal from all the past things that has happened and realize that maybe if people hurt you in the past does not mean that the same person would hurt you now. We just need to open to each other with a clean slate and just be accepting to each other. Like, we are not that different. We may be from different countries, but it doesn't mean that we're different. We're still one. And as Africa as a whole, it would be to our detriment to be fighting each other. We need to be one so that we can be strong and then fight against the world, I would say.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
True inspiring words from a beauty queen.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Ufa Daniel, represented Kwara State.
Miss Charismatic, add that to that title.
Yeah. Miss Charismatic at the Miss Universe Nigeria. And she's from Edo State.
Yes.
So we're all one. Nigeria, South Africa, Africa, we are all one. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's our offering on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Of course, we'll be back again tomorrow for the last edition before the week. I am Bukola Koka.
And of course, from right here in Lagos, we thought we could take some of your posts. Okay, let's see. Part of what we didn't take before. So let's tell you what some people are saying on X concerning the less work day for Lagos workers as directed by the government. This is coming from Big Shetty saying, all office workers in Lagos should work from home. It's never a flex to stay in traffic for hours when you practically have less things to do at the office. Because I think you have the next one. That's coming from Robert Andrew. If I can take that one, says, what about the school teachers? How then one do them?
Yes, and this one is from Shei Fumi Jr. Is that the solution? He asks. Instead of tackling from the root, they're giving temporary solution, working from home for how long?
Sachukuma says...
Yeah, there you go. Says the idea is good, provided that workers have reliable facilities to work from home with ability to deliver acceptable results. Work from home should not be taken as a day off. Very important.
Oh boy. So that's offering, like Bukola. She has come with another new English. It used to be bumper package. Nice offering. I don't know what she will come up with tomorrow. She's back, by the way. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Thank you for watching.
Well, there's more offerings, forgive me, from right here in Abuja, and that's Sunrise Daily. So stay right here with us on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Kikili. Goodbye.